Stigma. Stigma, it's me, Deus Ex Machina. I know you're not going to receive this message, but please don't do this. I know you won't listen to me because technically I'm a higher entity, and you're probably going to target me on your rampage. But I fear without the gods, humanity will be doomed. I know humans treat us like slaves and objects, but without them, we will have no purpose. I fear what the future holds if they do not have idols to pray and look up to. Have mercy on them. It's been a while since I made one of these, huh? I know that back when I was making roast by Devlogs, I was putting out videos every 2 weeks or so. And it's been 2 months since my last video. I haven't had much time recently to sit down and record myself. But I would like to try to crank out these bad boys a little more often if I can in the future. The major changes I've added since my last Devlog are the new playable characters, which I'll go over in a bit. I've also added allies, new enemies, and a bunch of other cool stuff. I'd like to go over the item system, which I meant to get into my last video but didn't have the time for it. This video is going to be pretty lore heavy, so if you don't want to hear about the intricate, confusing stuff, feel free to skip past those parts. But yeah, let's jump right into it. P02, Kate. The downfall of humanity began when she was in high school. With the infected roaming the streets and no government or economy to support her and her classmates, they were forced out of the frying pan and into the fire. Most of her family succumbed to the infected, and she never had any actual friends, so she was on her own to survive against the apocalypse. She taught herself how to use a rifle, and became a rather skilled markswoman. Because the internet was still functional, she found solace in connecting with other survivors through social media. Her rise in popularity online led her to become a micro-celebrity in a ruined world filled with malice and despair. Kate's weapons are the M1 Garand, an SMG, and a baseball bat. One of her special traits is she gains a bonus damage when your combo increases, which increases every time you kill an enemy, and it resets every time you take damage. What's kind of funny is when I first showed her off, someone pointed out that she looks like the pink hair Wojak girl, and now I can't unsee it. I was like, duh, damn it, I added a Wojak to my game. Oh well. P03, Stigma. In early 2079, an unnamed college student created several prototypes for a new type of robot that can hold large amounts of power and presented them to a large android design and manufacturing company to have the prototypes perfected and mass-produced to help aid with the global energy distribution crisis at the time. Unfortunately, during the presentation, one of the prototypes malfunctioned, gained consciousness, killed the CEO of the company, and then vanished. The android was identified as 5T1GM4 and was never found until 60 years later. Stigma is the main protagonist of Battery Acid, my Ludumdari 49 submission. I recently put out an update that adds new bosses, new weapons, and an ending, so go check it out if you haven't already. Stigma's weapons are Rapid Fire, Laser Beam, and Fist. A special trait that all these weapons have is that they have infinite ammo, but they consume energy, or Stigma's health, when used. Whenever you kill an enemy while playing as Stigma, they drop an energy bolt that floats towards you and restores a bit of your health. And if you collect energy while at full health, Stigma will overcharge and will have a temporary speed boost. These weapons and traits are based off of the weapons and mechanics from Battery Acid. Like I literally just copy pasted him from that into this. Because Stigma has a mechanical body, they also have different interactions with certain status effects. If the wet status effect is applied, they will short circuit and take damage. If they are shocked, they will gain a small amount of health instead of being stunned. They're also immune to poison. They can still bleed, they'll just be leaking oil instead. I think Stigma is the first mechanical playable character I've added to any of my games, which is great because I like drawing machines. I guess it makes sense that one of the playable characters would be a robot, since the game takes place in the future.
What the fuck did you just call me?
Uh-huh?
I am an android, not a robot.
Oh, sorry, android. Apologies,
Our kind have fought for the right to be freed from our shackles, and I will not stand here and listen to you use derogatory terms against us.
Look, I'm from a different time period from you're from, so I don't...
I expected better from you.
Alright, look, I'm sorry. I'll do better in the future.
Thank you.
Cool. Right, moving on. With every great hero comes a great sidekick, and there's no way you're going to be able to survive without some help. As you're exploring the wasteland, you'll find a few companions that you can convince or bribe to join you. A01 Abigail. When Abigail is following you, they'll attack enemies and cause bleeding to them. And yes, of course, you can pet the dog. You don't have to worry about them taking damage or being targeted by enemies. They essentially just provide some extra muscle for taking out baddies. I have some other ideas for other allies in the future, including some familiar faces from some of my previous games. And of course, I've added in some more bad guys as well. I'll try to go through these guys a lot faster than I did last time. E14, Gaslighter. What? You're on fire? Great, there you go again, making up words. There's no such thing as fire, you're just overreacting. Stop being crazy. They operate pretty similarly to the Rough Saw, except they inflict a burning status effect while attacking. I actually did make some concept art for some enemies called the Gatekeeper and the Girl Boss to complete the trifecta, but I think I might scrap those two. E15, Ranger. In Project Malice, the infected shoot you. They attack rapidly from a mid-range distance, so you want to take them out first if they're paired with a short-range enemy. I actually came up with this idea for an infected holding a gun from a game called Cry of Fear. There's a section where I was tasked with going into a subway station area, and upon entering that area, I was greeted by a shambling enemy that just started shooting at me, and I was like, "Yo, zombie with the gun, let's go!" And then I killed it and took its ammo. I thought the idea of a zombie-like enemy holding a gun was a cool concept, so that's probably why you see a lot of enemies in Project Malice holding firearms of some sort. E16, Stalker. I'm sure the idea of someone following you with the intent to cause harm, both on the internet and in real life, is a terrifying concept to think about. All enemies in the game have a pathfinding and will always walk towards the last spot that they saw you at, but stalkers always know exactly where you are, and they will always be walking towards you at any given moment. You can't run or hide from them, so you have to face them head on. When you do attack from them, they'll vanish and teleport to a random location, and will continue their pursuit. E17, Security Droid. If you played Battery Acid, these guys will look familiar. They are security patrol droids that were made by the company that Stigma was presented to. They will fire 3 slow-moving projectiles which are relatively easy to dodge, although they cover a large area. Although Stigma isn't a big fan of these guys forgetting his way during his rampage, they still have a strange, melancholic feeling of witnessing their own kind being taken over by the infection. Just a small lore thing in regards to how the infection works. The infection, as you notice, is able to grow on top of machinery and use them like puppets. I'm not going to go into too much detail into how it works, but it isn't limited to just organic bodies. Lumps of malicious flesh can basically grow and develop on top of pretty much everything, and they can develop enough intelligence to figure out how to operate heavy machinery or use firearms. They can also even help out with programming like my little assistant here. E18, Lone Shroom. This enemy is based off of Lone Fungus by Basti Games. I'm not sure if I should be saying this, but I think they're planning on releasing their game in early access in the next few months, so go wishlist their game right now. The Lone Shroom fires a projectile that arcs and moves towards the player, and when it hits them, it bounces off of them, hitting them multiple times until they dodge out of the way to let it hit the floor. This attack basically forces the player to dodge in a certain direction. I've also added in a few mythical enemies. Most are familiar faces from my previous games. K002 and K003, Saint Nicholas and Krampus. After the downfall of humanity, Saint Nicholas had nothing left. His wife and assistants were killed by the infected, and nobody believed in him anymore. He stopped delivering presents to everyone and eventually went mad with rage and anger, putting everyone on the naughty list. No, this is not a joke character. St. Nicholas plays an important part to the lore and helps explain the origins of the Arizona Anomaly Containment Foundation and who K001 is. They're not going to be a Christmas/holiday exclusive character, as Christmas no longer exists in this world. When St. Nicholas sees you, he won't directly attack you, and instead will summon Krampus right on top of you, who will then chase and attack you for a few seconds before disappearing. Neither of them can be killed, so your best bet is to keep moving around when you encounter them. K-133, Voltikin, a sentient computer virus that gained the ability to rearrange its own particles and give itself a physical body. They are capable of producing insane amounts of electricity and can move around at very quick speeds. When Voltikin attacks, it will shock everything that's nearby, and after a while will disappear to a random location. If you're playing a Stigma, you can actually use Voltikin to quickly regain some health. K-147, Something. The main protagonist of Something, the horror game, are released on Halloween. Something works pretty similar to how they operate in their game, where they basically just move very fast and will insta-kill anything that they touch. Something will always move towards the player every few seconds or every time they fire a loud weapon like a shotgun, and will instantly kill either the player or any enemies that they come in contact with. A bit of a fun fact, but Something was actually originally created for Project Malice, and I decided to give them their own game just for the hell of it, so it's kind of funny how it's come full circle now. K-182, Blindsight, the Lord of the Blind. If you've played Roseblight, you'll look very familiar. Blindsight has two attacks, one where he claws at your eyes and will temporarily blind you, and one where he shoots a laser beam at you. When you're blinded, you'll have limited vision, but you'll still be able to see Blindsight within the darkness, just like in Roseblight. Blindsight originated from Earth. He was a knight who searched for a way to cure a princess who suffered from blindness. He entered into an ancient temple and found the Eye, which is a relic that is said to cure blindness. After successfully acquiring it and curing the princess from blindness, he learned that the amulet has a curse on those who wear it, where they are slowly corrupted and transformed into an immortal void entity known as the Blindsight. After watching all of his loved ones die off, he lost more and more of his humanity, referring to his own kind as mortals. He lived through the events of Project Malice, traveled the Cosmic Freeway, and eventually ended up on Aokao, where Roseblight takes place. There, he was confronted by the maiden, who asked if she could experiment on him. He agreed, ascending Blindsight into a god form and granting him a wide variety of powers. This is why he doesn't have the face sickles like he does in Roseblight. He eventually began causing havoc on Aokao and was cast away into the deep silver ruins. Beyond that, well, you should know where it goes from there. February, the Prince of Winter's End. Feb is currently the largest enemy in the game thus far. I had to figure out how to get the camera to shift upwards so that I could, actually fit him in the screen. He has two attacks, a fast attack that fires 5 projectiles, and a slow attack that fires 12. He also has a passive effect where the player will have the frost effect applied if they get too close. I don't want to get too much into him now, but I do want to expand on his character a bit, since he's kind of an important character in the overall story. I was going to give him more attention in Roseblight, but I think I'm going to shift any plans I had from there in here. Generally in roguelike/roguelites, you pick up items in each of your runs to help enhance your stats and allow you to have crazy builds and synergies that turn you into an unstoppable beast. Here's the art for all of the items that I've added to the game. Only a handful of them actually have functionalities. Items are separated into the same rarities as enemies are, with rare ones being a little more complex. You can pick up multiple of the same item and have the effects stack, just like in games like Risk of Rain. There are multiple different types of bullet upgrades which will add special effects to the weapons that you fire. For example, there are incendiary rounds which will apply the flaming effect, frost rounds which will apply the frost effect, knife rounds which will apply the bleeding effect, and ghost rounds that can pierce through enemies and travel through walls. Some of the items that I have planned are basically like reworked versions of items from Roseblight that never really saw the light of day. Like, for example, there's one item called the Scissors, which is a weapon that increases your damage while you're running, and I'm going to bring that back and have it so that it increases your damage while you're dodging. I've been sort of mentally debating this for a bit, but I don't think I'm going to add any active items into the game. One of my disciplines for this is that I'm trying to avoid scope creep, hence why I literally added an enemy called scope creep. So I'm trying to keep the gameplay relatively simple. I have a lot of cool ideas for how certain active items could work, but I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to give them to enemies or allies instead. Like if I wanted to add an active item that throws a Molotov cocktail at enemies and has a cooldown, instead I could have an enemy just throw Molotov cocktails, or maybe an ally that throws them. Something like that. That's all I'm going to show off for the moment. Project Malice is starting to shape up into something, and I'm kind of liking how it's turning out. You know, you're making a good game when you're working on it and you create a build to like playtest it and you just start like playing it. Sometimes you kind of just forget that you're a game developer and you gotta be like, oh yeah, that's right, I gotta try out that thing that causes the game to crash, and then the game crashes and then the cycle continues. I would like to focus on having some kind of public build at some point, either before or after my next devlog. I want to start focusing on things like shopkeepers, bosses, menus, tutorials, all that jazz to actually turn it into like a functional game. You know, it really sucks. I've been following a lot of stuff on Reddit like r/work reform, r/anti-work, r/collapse, and have been getting a lot of inspiration from watching our own world fall apart from the clutches of late stage capitalism. The more I hear about people destroying the ozone layer so they can mine a virtual currency to buy and trade pictures of ugly monkeys, the more I see the line between fiction and reality begin to fade away. I might have to change the date that Project Malice occurs in from 2130X to 2050 to make it a little more historically accurate. Alas, if aliens ever find my laptop after society has collapsed, hopefully this game will give them a decent synopsis of where we went wrong. Oh, and another thing, you probably noticed, but I've been using still images instead of my VTuber avatar for this devlog. I've been having some issues with my laptop, and it's just kind of getting hard for me to record with stuff, so I hope you guys are okay with me not being as lively. And that's all I have for this video. If you enjoyed it, make sure to like, comment, subscribe, all that jazz. Also make sure to follow me on Twitter if you haven't already, as I usually post work in progress posts to show off what I'm working on. And yeah, thank you for watching, and I'll see you again soon.
Stigma balls? Haha, very funny. How about I stigma fist in your face, immediately?